everybody. I'd like to tell you about a little story about my situation with homeschooling. I was doing my homework one day, and my 3-year-old, at the time, granddaughter, came in the room with me, and she started to use my iPad to do homework too, with Nana. So I then proceeded to look, and she was doing her alphabet backwards. And she asked me a question. This is a true story. Nana, what comes before the letter T? And I'm like looking at this little kid going, who does the alphabet backwards? And I had to rethink what really came before the letter T, because I started going, you know, E, F, G. Okay, well, then I realized children at that age, their first education experience comes from the home. And mothers, fathers, siblings, parents, for me, it was me for my granddaughter. I was her first experience as far as education. So then I started to proceed and teach her sight words in the tub. If it was that soap that you use to write on the walls in the bathroom, we started proceeding learning sight words. I'm here to say now my granddaughter is 6 and she's reading at a 2nd grade level because of that start at home. So I'd like to just say the benefits of homeschooling children at home can be a very rewarding experience, and I have Alex to come in and talk about some of the benefits to homeschooling.
Good morning. I contacted a local private school called Holy Trinity Episcopal School in Humble, and I was able to get a quote for one 5th grader. Tuition for one 5th grader is over $10,000 a year. Not including the $750 administrative fee, all of their supplies and uniforms, which can easily total $15,000. So private education is expensive. Another benefit to homeschooling is education can be tailored to student abilities. If a student excels in a certain area, like math, their learning can be accelerated. They can be given more material, whereas in public or private schools where the learning is more structured, they may not be able to continue on the path to learn more. Conversely, if a student struggles in a subject, appropriate time and attention can be taken to make sure that the student gets the attention that they need and learns at the pace that is appropriate for them so that they're not behind. Whereas in a public school situation, if they're behind, and they have to make it up for themselves at home. The pace can be set to what is best for the student. Homeschool students also exhibit better self-esteem, and there's less likely to be bullying. They exhibit a more positive self-image, and while they're more closely monitored at home, bullying is far less likely to happen. Studies have also shown that homeschoolers have higher grades on standardized tests. According to Michael Romanowski, homeschool students scored higher on the SAT and ACT. According to the HSLDA, they scored up to 40% higher than the average. Homeschool students are also known to be more well-rounded students. According to Dr. Brian Ray, they exhibit advanced ability to participate in the community. They have better family relationships and better overall values and beliefs. According to Michael Romanowski, 98% of homeschooled students engage in 2 or more extracurricular activities a week. They also learn to get along with a variety of people, and they develop more social maturity and ability to work in a variety of situations. So now I'm going to pass it on to Isaac for some more information. Thank you.
So I would like to talk to you today, give you some more homeschooling advantages, and also share with you some personal stories. First off, homeschooling environment. It's a great environment. It's very family-oriented. Statistically, an article by Brian Ray called Homeschooling on College, What Research Shows Us, he says that 95% of married or homeschool families are headed by married couples. The mother is usually the main educator, and the father also has a lot to do with the education. But practically, this means we're a homeschooler. We stay at home. And naturally, being at home, we get to see a lot more of our family members than a public schooler would. And it's really nice. Me personally, my grandpa lives next door to us, so he comes over and says, "Hey, I've got a project. When you have time, could you help me with this?" So we get to see him all the time, and it's great. Another great thing about the environment of homeschooling is it is customizable, as Alex said. You can tailor their education. Another article by Brian Ray, he does a lot of homeschooling. So he says, when children are at home and not in large groups, time management is more flexible, and parents who know their children more intimately can respond to their individual child's talents and needs, which means, as Alex said, you can focus on their strengths and help them accelerate their learning, or you could work with their weaknesses and strengthen that aspect of your child's learning. Really nice. Now, this customizable teaching is also conducive to learning. As you can see by this graph behind me, this is the ACT composite scores, and homeschoolers are on average 1.5 percentile points above that of public schoolers, and still they surpass that of private institutions. And also something that is customizable is curriculum. It's not just about this subject, it's about how it's taught too. There's a curriculum out there, maybe some of you have heard Bob Jones. Well, you don't have to just use Bob Jones math, Bob Jones English, Bob Jones science. We can use a certain curriculum for science, and then another certain curriculum for English, and yet another certain curriculum for, and the list goes on and on. We can do that, and it helps diversify how we learn. Now, another advantage of homeschooling is flexibility. We don't have to wait on it. When we're done, we move on. We don't have to wait for the class period to end. It could take as long as it takes us to finish the subject, but when we're done, we move on. We also have a very relaxed schedule, which means we can go on vacation in late November, or when other public schoolers are in school. It's really nice. Peaceful, less expensive, less crowded, you know. They don't jack up the prices on it. Now, extracurricular activities. Alex touched on this earlier. We have a lot of social activities. She said that we go and participate in social activities at least 2 times a week. And my prom is actually this Saturday. It's my homeschool prom. We do it through an organization, but aside from socialization aspects of extracurricular activities, we also get practical activities. So, an example of this, last semester during school time, in the middle of the day we would go pour concrete. My sister gave a speech on pouring concrete from this experience. We would go pour concrete with our grandpa in the middle of the day when regular kids would be in school. How many kids do you know that would be able to get off school to do that? I would say not very many, but as homeschoolers have that advantage. So with all this in mind, I'd like to pass it off to Shay for the recommendation.
Hello, everyone. Well, we've heard a lot of benefits to homeschooling. Obviously, there's immense benefits that can happen when you have a well-grounded and well-educated foreigner. But there can be problems with this. One of the main issues and main arguments that people say is that most homeschool kids aren't well socialized. And that can be a problem. There are some instances where they're homeschooled and they're sheltered by parents that are often too afraid of the outside world. I have an example of this. I have a cousin. He is very well sheltered and he doesn't like to get out much, and he was homeschooled. And he's been homeschooled since middle school. And he still doesn't like to get out much, and he still doesn't know how to respond to people and in social situations and such. But that also can be counteracted. well, in Isaac's case, he has an organization that gives him prom. Or, you know, you go into extracurricular activities, as Isaac is also in Boy Scouts, which gives him more a social leeway. So that argument is kind of, but there's also more arguments that can be made against homeschooling. There is extra expenses. Yes, private homeschooling can be expensive. I mean, not private homeschooling, private schooling. It can be expensive, and mostly it's in inner city areas where most public schools don't have a lot of, well, funding and proper ways of educating. But there's also extra expenses for people that homeschool. Around, there's a lot, they have to buy their own supplies, their own books. The way they teach, they have to have like the certain type of supplies for the material and for their curriculum. And for some parents, it's often full-time. So they have to take time out of their work schedule. And it's kind of, you know, counterproductive. In some situations, it's often, not often, but sometimes a singular way of learning. Parents filter what they give their child, like we always do. Like some parents will censor channels on TV because it's either too violent, it's too adult, and we also filter what we teach our kids sometimes. And that can be a problem when there can be so many ways of learning things, and it can expand the mind more further. And also, it can take away state and federal funding for public education. Think about the teachers that we are not giving, like our kids. If we choose to homeschool, like a lot of kids, what about our teachers? How are we supposed to pay them if there's no kids to teach? That's a big problem. It's not always our teachers' fault that they're not getting the necessary education that homeschooling can give, that they can get more higher percentile of grades and test scores. But we should like punish teachers for doing that because taking our kids out. We should help our public education system rather than being like, oh, it's bad, so we should just go away. We should be there to help. And Ryan, would you like to?
In addition to these criticisms, there's quite a few others that are of note when it comes to homeschooling. Most notable to me, I believe, is the idea that homeschooling, despite the fact that there are modules, that there are ways to learn from homeschooling that are standardized across the community, homeschooling by and large is not really standardized. It's not really consistent, and what could be a far above private education for one student could very easily be a haphazard, ramshackle affair of basically quasi-education for younger students. It also doesn't broaden students outside of their own home. Say you're in an abusive household, or you're in a household that would otherwise be very insular. If you're at school, you can at least figure out something more about your situation. You could get help from a counselor. You would be more equipped to handle that. But if you're just homeschooled and homeschooled by an abusive parent, you're going to be stuck in a situation with almost no recourse or ability to get out of it. And those two, I think, are at the core of many criticisms, both here of homeschooling and other things.
All right, and we'll pass it on to Lillian, and she will take us away with our conclusion.
In conclusion, not only have we talked about the disadvantages, which we know there are, but we've mentioned and gone over all of the advantages that there are to homeschooling, such as it is less expensive for you. You're not spending all that money. Your education can be customized, so your child can have the proper education that they need and not the one that is being provided automatically for them. And they're in a better environment. You can control the environment. You can control what your children are listening to, what your children are doing at all times. Yeah, it seems a little bit controlling, but that's what parents are supposed to do. So in conclusion, we see that there are plenty of benefits to homeschooling, and this is why there are more Americans homeschooling their children nowadays. Thank you for listening.
Questions, Jonathan?
I have a question for Shay and Ryan. As a homeschooler, I've been homeschooled all my life, and I just wonder your opinion. Do you think maybe for some states ban homeschooling? Texas is one of the top homeschooling states. Do you believe it should be regulated, or should it be slowly banned?
I think a regulation is best, because I mean, homeschooling isn't necessarily an inherently bad thing. Some people can't afford much otherwise, and sometimes it really works for people. You know, there are a lot of people out there that can really educate their students, and the public school system, as much as we argue against homeschooling in the speech, the public schooling system is not exactly perfect, and in fact, it's very dysfunctional in America in a lot of ways. So I think it's understandable for a lot of homeschooling to go on, but the problem is, to me, is that it seems unregulated. So I think it would be best if it was more regulated system.
I'm with him. It should be regulated, but not too regulated, because like we need like a strict, like not too, you know what I mean. You know, homeschooling is where the really good benefit is that you can customize what it can be, and that's nice for some people that would rather, you know, fit it to what their kids need. And that's great. That shows that you really care about your kids. However, it can be counterproductive. Like I said with my cousin, he's kind of a difficult case, okay? He wasn't like a lot of homeschool kids that we put in the speech. He couldn't pass his GED, which is a big problem. And see, that type of regulation would help, but we don't want to make it so it feels like public school at home, which is not what homeschooling is. Homeschooling is more of a connection with your parents and teaching, you know, your curriculum at a great level.
Because
We'll start in the back, Timothy.
My question is, what age, not necessarily what age, I mean, like, what grade does homeschooling stop at?
It can go all the way through high school. It's really dependent upon the parent.
They can
and
graduate
their
as
abilities.
early as 16.
Yeah.
Okay.
They can graduate as early as 16.
Okay, so then as in following by graduating out of high school, you know, from homeschooling, so how would a student react, especially now you've been ready to transition from being homeschooled to going to public out-wise, because you've been ready to go to college. You got to deal with professors and other people around you, you got to work with groups and other different types of people that come around you, but you've been contained, you know, at home for 12 years, you know.
Please, Isaac, can you talk about the containment?
I'm just saying, see, I can't see myself sitting at home, you know, learning. I see it as a good way for, you know, for some people, but, you know, I just having a social life, to go out with other people, even though I know people, I know people generally I can talk with, but I'm talking about I like to meet new people, very outgoing, you know, I can't just.
Okay, so let Isaac answer.
I just wanted to say one thing about that. A majority of homeschool kids, when I worked at a high school, when we did our registration, they would homeschool from elementary to middle. And then once they reach high school, they would come into high school as regular public school students. So a lot of them would stay, they were homeschooled, they would blast the standardized test when they would come into high school, and we would register these homeschool students and enter them with the regular population, and it was no problem integrating them. But some do stay from kindergarten through 12th grade and graduate.
I'm a perfect case of this. So Timothy, I believe your question to be, you think the transition from homeschool to public school would be hard?
Right.
Right, okay. Well, in a lot of respects it can be, but we prefer to, well, we pretty much, we have activities as public schoolers do. We do participate, and I mean, it's not like we've not ever seen a public schooler before. We know how
right, but you know, I'm just saying as you know, even though you're at home, you're also still moving around the city and everything and all, but I'm just saying you're not actually physically, you know, every single day like most of us were, you know, with other students, you know, planning different activities, you know, get out of class, going out with a bunch of other people, but you right. Yeah, just more interactive and whatever.
What makes you so person?
Like,
we're acting like when you're homeschooled, you're like in your room the entire day, you're never school a day. Like that's not true. Like I was homeschooled for like 5 years, and then I went to high school. Like so between middle school, I was homeschooled for that, and the transition was a little bit different, but it wasn't hard. I still had friends when I was homeschooled. I still did the activities. I feel like I lived a normal life. Like I still had all these different outside. I would go to tennis. I'd have all these different clubs I was involved in. So I mean, when people think of homeschoolers, they think, oh, they're locked in a room or locked away. They never make friends or anything like that. But you still socialize. Like, it's not that big of a difference from being, I mean, it is in the sense of, they even have homeschooling classes you can go to and socialize with other people. So I think you have to consider the type of homeschooling and the parents and how much they want them to shelter.
Good point, though.
There was another question? There was another question?
Oh, I did have a question for. Let's go, okay. I did have a question for Shay and Ryan. The regulations, what kind of regulations?
Just
Like,
a basic, like,
so you should.
like you at this grade level, well, at this instant, implied grade level, you should know how to do a certain type of math, like, just that, which is fine.
So the parents should teach the 5 core things: English, reading, math, science.
Basics,
The
just
basics.
basics.
That's,
And then,
that's already implemented.
all right, then that's good. There we go.
They also,
It might be different in Tennessee.
but they also have,
It is a little different.
they also have programs where if you're homeschooled, you can go to a public school and get remedial lessons.
Really?
And tutoring, if you need that aspect. It may be your situation in Tennessee is a little different because the parents did not really go outside to seek other entities to learn.
Honestly, when I think regulation, I think, well, yeah, with the scholastic qualities and there's some benchmarks. And forgive me for not knowing too much about this because we didn't put it in our speech. This was our response to the question.
Yeah.
But I think that by regulation, there should be more regulation as to classroom environment or behavioral and also,
Socialization.
I mean, maybe a bit of socialization, but also, you could have a homeschooling set up where, again, you could be in an abusive household. You have someone who's checking in on that, checking in on
I
the quality of
agree.
education ongoing, as part of a more regulated system.
Like
I think
inspections.
yeah, that could like help a lot of kids out in a lot of difficult situations that they could never understand.
Well, there are 2 types of homeschoolers. There are the parents who want to homeschool their kids, and then there are the parents who take their kids out of school because,
Just because.
yes, just
But the
because.
state can't decide
Which
what
was-
to do.
Yeah, there's not like a ballot you check, hey, are you a bad homeschooler? You don't get that on a form, that's why I think there
Sure.
should be exceptions.
So, any more questions?
Snow and Natasha, and then I have one.
No.
Okay. So y'all were talking mainly about the students, and that the students get higher grades on their SAT scores, and they do much better. However, who teaches you, your mother or your father? Or with,
Usually, like I said, the main educator is the mother.
all right.
She-
Have you ever spoken to your mother and asked her what does she have to do? Because when I think of homeschooling, it requires not just a part of the student or the child, but also a main part of the parents. And they also have to be able to know the information and know everything that they're teaching before they teach you about it. And if someone can't just say, oh, I'm going to be a homeschooler now, or my kid's going to be a homeschool now, and just start off, oh, yeah, that's, here's math, you learn that, if you need help with that.
Well, Snow, you're absolutely right. The mother has a big job. She's just like in public school as a teacher. The mother has to step up and be a teacher of her own. It's a huge commitment, but they have the ability. They have the resources. They have the ability, and they get to be more in touch with their
And
children.
they follow up.
Can I comment on that? I had a teacher in high school that I went up to her and asked her a question about the Mockingjay. No, Mockingjay? Kill a Mockingbird. And I'm like, hey, she's like, if you have questions, come up to my desk. And I'm like, oh, hey, I want to know about this. And she just looks at me, she's like, I'll Google it. Like, so there are public school teachers that have no idea what in life they're doing. And I have plenty of them, especially in my high school. Don't play. So I realize sometimes parents, because they're not teachers, and they want to homeschool their children, they're going to put more effort into like learning the material and looking up all the questions, because they're also your mom and your dad, so they don't want to look like they don't know what they're doing. So like they try to make sure that they know all the information, so that when you ask the question, then they can actually answer it. Or like you just want to Google it.
Natasha, did you have a question?
It's more like a statement.
Okay.
Okay, in Texas, we have to cover 5 core subjects, so we have English and math. But like in Kentucky, we had to keep all of our records for the school year and send them in.
Mm-hmm.
And in Pennsylvania, you have to send all samples throughout the year of your schoolwork, and you have to have a psych evaluation once a year.
Really?
And you have someone come inspect.
You have an inspection, yes.
Really? Wow.
Sometimes it's harder to get through.
Wow. Excuse me, Shay, you had a cousin that you said that was homeschooled, but he
It was a
didn't.
negative experience.
It was a negative experience. But because I've heard of instances like that where the mom will say, yes, I will homeschool, but the kid is never introduced to any type of teaching or training whatsoever.
Yeah, the problem with my cousin in particular was, we did touch on it, he did have instances of bullying, and his mother, being very, very hyper protective of her son,
Okay.
tried to take him out of public school. Now, this is just one instance, but it's the one that I'm more familiar with because it's my family. And so he was not taught like things like, I had homework over the summer and I would have it for high school and I would do it, and then he would ask about it, and I'm like, and he's a year older than me, and I was like, here's my pre-cal work, and he would be like, I don't even know what that is. Like nothing about it. Like nothing. And that's just one negative instance of it. And that can be a problem. Of course, we've heard from our homeschooling kids that it is irregulated, but I'm not sure how Tennessee does it. And in that case, I'm not sure if he was properly homeschooled, which is it's kind of leaning towards yes, he was not properly, because he couldn't even pass his GED twice. He finally did.
Okay,
like
good.
the third time.
Okay, yay. Yay. We had a question back here.
I was just going to say that your mother doesn't have to be an expert in all the education stuff, because they have textbooks and you learn from the textbook. Like my mom was like mainly teaching us until we were like 9 or 10, but then we just had our assignments, we got our books, we learned from our books, we did our homework, we checked our homework, and that was it. And then we did good in college.
Yeah.
So.
Very true. And I'd like to add to that, my mother constantly, all the time, still, she says, I'm learning so much from reading these books with you guys.
You don't get to pick the curriculum you use.
So, quick question. That's a workout in. As being homeschooled, do you gain a trait of very well as being self-disciplined?
Yes, most of the time we do.
Well, I'm just saying, because self-discipline is very hard to gain for most people, because especially being homeschooled, you're around all your favorite things. Like you got all your electronics, TVs, and everything else. Like right, and for me to be home, I can't study at home at all. Period.
I can't either.
I can't. I gotta get away from the house to study, from the library, or something. So.
That's a good point.
Timothy, in that respect, the parent has a lot to do with that. They have to discipline their kids and tell them, no, you have to do your schoolwork, you can't do that right now, and things like that. But it is also a responsibility of the kid as well. So it teaches the kid responsibility. You have to, get your work done, and it just helps them in self-discipline at an early age.
Can I please hear from the homeschoolers in the classroom in terms of bullying? I know a lot of parents take their kids out of school because of bullying, but in terms of the emotional growth and response to how to deal with negativity, do you think homeschoolers are on the same level in terms of dealing with emotional stress and not getting along with other people? Because in a real school environment where there are so many other people, you have this different set of dynamics going on with communication and personalities. So just from the homeschoolers, do you feel that you were able to branch out emotionally and to grow in terms of stressful situations?
I do feel that I was able to grow out because, like I said, we have the one homeschool organization we're in. And we're actually members of more than one homeschool organization,
okay.
But we just go to that one. We favor that one. And we have our own network within with other homeschool families. So it's not necessarily that we can't socialize or we're not emotionally ready. It's just that we've been exposed to other types of networks.
Other types of networks. Alex?
Well, I think we're emotionally in tune. We're just not used to how the public schools talk and their language. We're not used to that text language. We're not used to all those cuss words at once.
Right. You have to decipher them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to sit there and think, what were they saying? But we interact just fine.
You get a lot more interaction between 4 and any age, really from 4 up. You get interaction with all homeschoolers. They treat you the same.
Okay.
We talk to any age group.
Any age group.
That's what I was going to say.
And Emily?
Because like we would have park days and we go all play at the park, but you would be as likely to find a kid talking to their friends as to their friends' parents. And we got along with everyone, whatever age, just nobody ever bullied anyone or picked on them. We were just all supportive and friendly pretty much.
I was going to ask if there was bullying, Jonathan, in do homeschoolers deal with bullying?
I say yes. I mean, even with our, like they said, connect our homeschool groups, I was connected with the group as well. There were some homeschoolers who had like problems. I mean, even
homeschoolers.
Yeah.
Nasty homeschoolers.
There were some stuff like where situations like when we deal with homeschooling, like some homeschoolers, there'd be some cliques like wealthier homeschoolers would be like stick with their own group.
Oh, there's cliques within homeschoolers. Cliques. So do you have homeschooler gangs?
And everything for me. I mean, there wasn't. Yeah, there is. And like, I mean, like we're all human, so we all have big issues. I mean, for us, like growing up, I was always involved in groups, football, Boy Scouts, everything. And I pretty much, I mean, when I entered to Lone Star, it was not really nothing to me. I was like only like getting school from a teacher.
Oh.
It was the same thing. I'm still around people or anything. It was not a big change.
It's not a big change for you.
Just had to go somewhere to go do school instead of going home and staying in the comfort of my bed.
Oh, okay.
I think that a homeschooler would be more emotionally stable. Like they go out and someone gives them an attitude and they're just like, ew. I was in public school in Elsinore and I got bullied so bad. I spent like, I don't know how many months while I was going to school. And then, you know, high school came in and it was like, skirt, what? But I do think that like homeschoolers would be more emotional. Like they'll just look at you like, you're an idiot. And just move on with life.
Look at me like you tell me I'm an idiot.
Okay, Timothy. Yes, Shane, and then we'll go to Alex.
So yeah, I was public school. Of course, it's kind of obvious. I'm on the reputation side, so I'm sorry, guys. And so I was bullied all throughout middle school, and of course, you get that emotional strain of being bullied and the peer pressure that comes with it. By the time I'm halfway through high school, I just deal with these people like doing this. Okay, you don't like me. It's kind of like, it's not like it's like a hazing thing, like you're initiated by bullying. Right. It's kind of like either you grow from it or you shrink. You need to learn how to grow from the fact that people are just not gonna like you. I'm gonna have people in this room that probably don't like me. And then I'll have people in this, shut up, Marcos.
Well, that's what you learned.
And then I'll have people in this room that will generally be like, oh, she's all right. I think she's pretty cool. But I kind fact that I'm not going to have everyone like me. And you know, that's kind of hard for me because I used to think I need to please everyone in this room. But nowadays I'm kind of like, if I don't please you, okay. And then I just deal with it because I've learned that if you try to please people that are too negative towards you and they spread rumors or they're gossip around you and they're just all around negative, you should just cut them out from your life anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, Shay.
You just learn from that experience of like bullying because like I thought the way to peace to bulliers was to say, I'm a nice person. Here's some cake and I'm nice. Here's my seat. No, that didn't work. I'm like, yeah, what?
Give me all your milk money.
Oh, of course. And then I was like, and I thought that was the way to do it, but no. Nowadays I'm like, you want my milk money?
They should.
Alex, you have a question? Yes.
The emotional stability of homeschool students versus public school students. I'm very good friends with an entire family that's homeschooled, and their youngest is 11. I have never seen such an outgoing personality. She's friends with everybody.
Really?
She's very sweet. She knows how to deal with people that, you know, may not believe the same things she does, and she has a very good overall self-image where my younger sister, my sister and I both went through public school. My sister at her age had no self-esteem. She was bullied mercilessly.
Oh my goodness.
And we actually, we grew up in several different parts of the state, and there were reasons we moved because bullying was so bad.
Wow.
So I think, yeah, I completely understand that she was bullied relentlessly for years.
Wow.
So I can see how there's a better stability with homeschooling students, and they have a better self-image.
And others.
Never mind.
And Emily?
That's what I think is one of the benefits of homeschooling, is it protects children while they're young and sensitive until they're secure with being themselves. And then they go out and they can brush it off to like, it's okay, I know who I am, I can deal with it.
Okay. And in Dominica, is there homeschooling in foreign countries?
No.
Is it a big deal? No, you haven't really heard of it?
So they go to school like the British go to school, they wear uniforms, so it's like a Montessori setting, they're very like structured in school.
Okay.
School is a big deal, they have different ideas for their teachers, they respect their teachers.
Yes,
So it's a whole different ballgame over there.
No?
They look forward to going.
They look forward to it. Jonathan and then Ryan.
No child looks for it.
That was a good topic, I think everybody liked it.
Yeah. Let's hear from Jonathan and then Ryan. Yes, Jonathan.
It's best, like, if you have a situation where someone's free to choose what education they want that suits them best. I mean, I have a friend who was homeschooled, but homeschooling wasn't really good for him, and he went to public schooling. And I mean, there's some people who go to public school who prefer to homeschool.
Okay.
I mean, it's what I think school choice is best.
Okay.
To decide
Who's next? Okay. Ryan?
All right, so I know we just did a really awesome presentation, the most best presentation in the world, better than anything ever done.
Well, excuse me.
I know that we brought up a lot of very interesting facts, but everyone's wrong. You see, there's a tie that no one got to. Look on the board. It seems innocuous, doesn't it? Well, let's take a closer look. Harm school.
Oh my gosh.
Harm school.
Come on now.
School.
Come
There.
on now.
Wake up. Wake up, America. Wake up.
Homeschool is harmful.
I was right under our nose.
I was hoping to
People do that on the internet all the time.
Professor, I'd like to say one thing to my group. Thank you for allowing me to do this.
Yes, they were very kind to you. Yes. Thank you, Harm School.